Hello, Mr. Dewey. Thanks so much for meeting with me today.
Not a problem. My pleasure, and please, call me John.
Alrighty then. So John, at the turn of the last century, you were concerned with the rise of the Industrial Revolution and its influence on education. There was a growing movement toward social efficiency education that you openly spoke against. At the time, you felt students should return to the agrarian roots of society and engage in occupations centered on that way of life. Looking back, do you think holding on to those occupations was a mistake?
Not at all. A common misconception has sprung from my belief in teaching through occupations. Looking back, I realize now what a poor choice I made in naming them occupations, a word so many people associate with vocations.
I am not sure I understand. What is an occupation, if not a vocation?
Let me clarify. Subscribers to the social efficiency movement felt that students should be trained in specific vocations based on their natural tendencies and strengths. Humanists believed in developing the child's mind and intellect through the traditional values of Western civilization. Each played a role in contributing to today's curriculum. My overarching philosophy of education incorporates what I termed occupations. As I said before, try not to think of occupations in the traditional sense. In my mind, an occupation is a social activity that ties together the traditional areas of learning. Unfortunately, like most people in your generation, you are only familiar with present-day occupations. For tasks and information that are unfamiliar to you, especially manual labor, you rely on others and their specific knowledge. Learning and education has become so narrowed and focused, students have only a grasp on particular subject areas or life occupations. People aren't able to see the bigger picture, or the process of getting from point A to point B. As a result, they become dependent on others, rather than interdependent. The typical school curriculum aims to prepare students for a college education, rather than focusing on the present and allowing students to test out their learning and social understanding within the safety of the school community.
So how do you propose we adjust the curriculum to ameliorate this problem?
I believe that all students are capable of growing, learning, and developing into moral citizens with strong intellect and the ability to reason. The education of a young child needs to be connected to his or her social experiences and activities. Subject areas should be interconnected and centered on the social experiences of the child through the engagement in occupations. Today's curriculum breaks learning into subject areas of separate study. You have first graders learning math, science, language, history, arts, etc. The curriculum is structured by grade level, and students are expected to progress through material which is not necessarily of interest to them, nor connected to their own life and experiences. Education needs to be more comprehensive. No one can predict the future of society, nor the specific needs of the individual. By beginning with the traditional agrarian occupations, and using them as a means to connect to more academic subject areas, students can mature both as individuals and within the context of a greater society, while at the same time gaining an appreciation for the development of these social activities over the course of mankind's existence. This curriculum will help students build reasoning skills, an appreciation for, and ability to perform, manual labor, and an understanding of society and their individual role and responsibilities within their community. Above all, the student needs to be able to think for him or herself, and be able to contribute to, and adapt to the world as it changes.
Speaking of change, since you wrote Democracy and Education, modern society has made yet another major shift, moving from the Industrial Revolution to the Information Age. As you know, the lab school ceased manual training in the late 1980s, dropping it in favor of computers and new technologies. Where do you see modern technology, such as the internet, computers, television, and film, fitting into education?
I think technology can be an excellent educational tool, but it must remain just another tool in a child's tool belt. Without a doubt, they should explore the workings of technology, perhaps by building their own computer. However, it is imperative that the particular technology be integrated into the curriculum, rather than become the centerpiece.
What do you think about the accumulated knowledge and technical advancements of the past century and their effect on children?
What concerns me most is the antisocial behavior that can result from too much time spent using technology. Students who spend hours communicating through the computer are not as adept at social interaction. They are unable to function in society in a healthy manner.
John, I must respectfully disagree. Today's student often makes excellent use of new technologies as a means for communication. What about blogs, wikis, and other methods of information sharing and communication? A student can read about the life of person living and blogging 5,000 miles away from them, and interact with that person through the computer. If anything, technology has made the world smaller and put distant information and peoples at the fingertips of any student.
I agree that the internet can be a useful research tool. However, it is much too easy for today's students to find information on the internet rather than gaining knowledge through direct experience. Students develop and learn through their social interactions and activities. Sitting behind a computer creates an artificial environment that does not properly simulate real-life experiences. Furthermore, it promotes passivity, which is the antithesis of a child's nature. As George Bernard Shaw so aptly noted, what we call education and culture is for the most part nothing but the substitution of reading for experience, of literature for life, of the obsolete fictitious for the contemporary real. Relying on technology to teach us about cultures, history, and all things foreign to us is like relying on books, rather than experiences to learn about culture, art, society, and the world.
I see your point. Moving on, today's schools are much more diverse in terms of race, socioeconomic status, religion, and other markers of diversity. As a result, there has been a strong push toward multicultural curriculums that incorporate the histories and traditions of the various social groups within America. What do you think of this call for change?
I think having people from a variety of backgrounds makes for an excellent school environment. Each individual can bring a unique perspective to school. However, I believe it is important that the curriculum unifies the student body. They need to see the bigger picture, a democratic American society in which we work together and hold common values and beliefs. Education is the means of the child's induction into the greater society, and it is important that the values and expectations impressed upon the child are consistent regardless of their personal background.
In that case, whose values do you include in the curriculum?
This is not a matter to be taken lightly. Ours is a democratic society, and as such, the ideals of the democracy should reign supreme. Human beings have amassed a large body of collective knowledge and experience. However, that does not mean we need to include all of it in our school's curriculum. We have the opportunity and the duty to weed out information that does not help to improve society or promote its shared ideals. The reality is, not all cultures will contribute in the same manner or amount to the school's curriculum. It is important to sift through each contribution and incorporate only the knowledge and beliefs that underscore and promote those of our democratic nation. The school needs to be an environment in which the expectations of society are impressed upon the students and their intellect is developed through their experiences and activities. Furthermore, the school environment should allow all students the opportunity to rise above the social group from which they were born. Having a curriculum that imparts the values and ideas expected by our society provides that chance, because regardless of the education received at home, education in the school can level the playing field for all.
I have to agree with you that education can be the key to unlocking a child's future and allowing them to rise above the socioeconomic status onto which they were born. So tell me, how do we prepare the curriculum and train teachers to facilitate such an environment?
Well, I think it's incredibly important that we include teachers in the curriculum building, as they are the ones directly interacting with the students. We also need to keep in mind the interests of the child. As far as how to train teachers is concerned, that isn't something I have completely developed. The reason I began the laboratory school was to experiment with these questions in hopes of finding the answers.
Fair enough. I have to agree that I find myself constantly experimenting and reflecting within my own classroom. I can understand your desire to do so on a larger scale. Final question. You've spoken quite a bit about the importance of education in the transmission of society's knowledge, expectations, and ideals. Is education more important for the individual or for society?
IT needs to be a balance of both. The individual needs to grow and learn, and it is the responsibility of the school and teachers to nurture and guide his or her education, so he and she can develop his or her intellectual capabilities. At the same time, it is in the best interest of society to impress upon that child the values and expectations held by the community. In this way, both the child and society are served, and social progress is inevitable.
John, Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. Any last thoughts?
Well, thank you for inviting me to speak with you. I appreciate the opportunity to voice my ideas. Let me just say that I truly feel education is the key to progress for our society. Without education, not only would we fail to grow as intellectual individuals, but also our way of life and collective knowledge and experiences would be lost.
Once again, John, thank you. As an educator, having the opportunity to speak with you directly has been immensely helpful. You've helped me clarify my own ideas and beliefs, and I can't thank you enough.